development for trade deals across the world. Let's go across to Surbhi for the latest on the TPP. Surbhi.
Absolutely. This is the big one in terms of international news this evening, Shereen. Let's get you the details of the story now. The United States, along with 11 other nations along the Pacific Rim, have signed a historic free trade agreement. The deal will affect India's economy and more specifically its exports. But before we get to that, here's what the deal entails. The deal is between economic powerhouses like the United States, Japan, Australia, Canada and 9 other countries who contribute to about 40% of the global economy. Now, these 12 countries will aim to reduce import tariffs to zero and open their doors to goods from partner nations. They will also attempt to write consistent rules for patent and copyright laws, environmental protection and labor standards. The New York Times reports that with this deal, the United Nations will pivot towards closer relations with fast-growing Eastern Asia. And of course, Shereen, like we've been saying, this will have perhaps significant ramifications for India as well, not necessarily in a positive sense.
No, it may not necessarily be positive at all, Surbhi, because as we move towards more plurilateral agreements, the space for India when it comes to global trade is perhaps shrinking. And this is something that the government is cognizant of. In fact, the Chief Economic Advisor, Arvind Subramaniam, has been tasked with trying to put together the kind of agreements that India should prioritize, and that report is expected shortly. That's the word coming in from the Minister of State for Finance, Jayant Sinha, who is here with us at the CNBC-TV18 Financial Inclusion Summit. And I had the opportunity to ask him about the implications of the landmark TPP agreement on India and Indian exports. Listen in.
I think it's a very welcome development for the global economy because the more that we can bring down trade barriers and encourage trade on a level playing field among important trading and economic nations, the better off we all are. So far, I think all of the countries that have signed, it's a very important step forward. I know in the United States, it's taken them a long time to be able
8 years of negotiations.
Yes, overcome the barriers. So it's a very important step forward for the global economy. Now, for India, of course, we have to think very carefully about these multilateral trading agreements. As you correctly point out, it's not so much the WTO where a multilateral trading set of arrangements is being created, but much more these other arrangements that are being put together. And as you know, the Chief Economic Advisor has been tasked right now to look into all of these different trading blocks and to see what should be India's position and how we should position ourselves relative to the trading blocks that are emerging.
But do you feel that this in a way will sideline India? I also ask you this in the context of what is happening with the India-EU FTA. Talks there have been derailed. There is hope now in the air after the Prime Minister has met with Chancellor Angela Merkel today, and you spent a greater part of your day with her as well. Is that the possibility that we are likely to see a revival as far as the India-EU FTA talks are concerned? And as we head into these plurilateral agreements, is the space for India going to shrink?
There is space for India very much in these trading arrangements. There is tremendous goodwill for India and a real recognition that India is going to be one of the key contributors to global growth and for opportunity creation around the world. So everybody would like India to be part of these trading arrangements. What we need to do on our end is to understand, how we have to work through over time exactly, the various trading arrangements that exist, which ones we have to prioritize and how we participate in that. As I said earlier, that's the task that the Chief Economic Advisor is engaged in right now. He's actually one of the world's most eminent trade economists. So we are very much looking forward to his report on this matter.
Well, that's the Minister of State for Finance, Jayant, and I also asked